As Christian McCaffrey is out on Sunday, and take a listen to Kyle Shanahan and the way he answered a question on Wednesday versus Friday. Hey, Kyle, IR? On Wednesday, it was absolutely not. Check it out.
No, I've never considered that. Considered him to play last week, so definitely not thinking about 4 weeks off.
48 hours later.
Game injuries. Huff will be doubtful. Dean Winters is questionable, and McCaffrey's out.
Does Christian need any kind of procedure or anything of that nature?
No procedure.
You said earlier in the week, IR is still not an issue.
It's something we're considering now. Yeah, yesterday was his worst day. It's on and off, but with it yesterday having the most pain, something we're going to be discussing here the next 24 hours.
All right. And Dibs, I appreciate your honesty because you said to our question, are the Niners still Super Bowl favorites? Because now it really does lean in the direction that Christian's probably going to miss the first 5 weeks of the season. That's just you and me talking. Sure. He's definitely going to miss week 2, but I think 3, 4, and 5 are likely as well based on that answer. Are they still Super Bowl favorites? You said yes, but you also admitted that if I had asked you that last Friday, you'd have said no.
Yeah, pre-Mason, I probably would have said no. I would have said that they still have a very good chance, but this checks notes Jordan Mason guy is going to have to be at least serviceable. Well, it turns out he's more than serviceable. 28 carries, $140. He's on pace for 2,000 yards this year. So
it's incredible.
It's incredible. So, yes, my answer has changed with new information, but honestly, if you take a step or two back and you don't have McCaffrey even for 8 weeks or 10 weeks, you still have a good enough overall team, in my opinion, to be right there in the end.
On FanDuel, prior to Kyle Shanahan's press conference, the Kansas City Chiefs were plus 500 favorites to win the Super Bowl. The Niners were second at plus 550. I want you to remember that number, plus 550. Then that press conference happened. And now the 49ers are plus 550.
Jeez, yeah. Still.
To win the Super Bowl.
Okay. So you're saying the odds haven't moved. They haven't budged.
Not one tiny bit.
And I think that the spread, which had been as much as 5.5, actually it might have gone all the way up to 6. I do believe, depending on where you shop for your lines, but it's sitting at either 5 or 5.5. So that hasn't moved that much either.
Well, I do think that spread baked into it was the somewhat the likelihood that Christian was not going to play, because that was sort of indicated by Adam Schefter right out of the gate on Tuesday. Where I'm shopping, Niners down to 4.5.
Okay.
Minus 4.5 against the Minnesota Vikings. But we'd love to hear from you. 888-957-9570 is the number. And obviously the question is, with this news, do you still consider the 49ers Super Bowl favorites? Let's go to Frankie Eyelashes in San Rafael. Hi, Frankie. What's good?
Well, they're not the favorite. Kansas City's the favorite. Why would the Niners be the favorite?
Well, they've been co-favorites all off season, actually, Frankie, and they're certainly the NFC favorite. You know what I mean.
Come on, dude. That one guy, it's just, dude, the guy who was just talking, I don't know which guy you got next to you there going, yeah, they got a great defense. They got this and that. Yeah, and they got Kyle Shanahan.
I won't have
Frankie.
You.
Yeah, check the marquee, Frankie. I'm 26 years in this market.
You guys, you want me to name the games? Here, let me name some of the games he's lost. Well, he was offensive coordinator with Atlanta. He blew that Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was his fault.
On 2 play calls. Instead of kicking the field goal going up by 11, he chose to go back and pass. They got sacked 2 times. Then the NFC Championship game against the Rams, he blew that. 4th and 2, they don't go for it. They're up by 10. You remember this.
Yeah, NFC Championship.
Blew 2 Super Bowls. Yep. Then he blew 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
the guy,
you're
dude,
right, Frankie. He's the one who went the wrong way on a block inside the red zone. That was his fault.
Hold on, Frankie.
Right, Frankie.
We'll accept all of that. Now do Andy Reid.
Andy Reid, what a god, man. Did you see how wide open they were in that final drive?
You forgot the first decade and a half of his career, didn't you, Frankie? Did you forget? Remember?
Listen, you guys, I'm a Raiders fan, but I know a dynasty when I've seen one, and this team is built for a decade. He's not just getting 4, you guys.
You still think they're the favorite in the NFC, Frankie? Or are you just trolling all afternoon?
It's a troll.
I think the Niners are a good team. I just don't like Kyle Shanahan. I don't like his coaching.
Fine. So answer the question, though, Frankie. You still consider him the favorite in the NFC or not?
No, absolutely not.
Who is then, Frankie? Oh, Detroit.
Detroit could beat him. Yeah, that's my friend's son, Jared Goff.
Oh, well, there you have it.
So you know Jerry Goff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Frankie.
I'll have to ask Jerry about you next time I bump into Jerry and see how good a friend you are, Frankie.
Well, listen, everybody can have whatever opinion you want. What I love to know is, where did your opinion come from? And when you give me hard-hitting analysis like the Lions are now the favorite, and we go, oh, why? Well, because I know Jerry Goff. Well, what a wonderful bleeping reason to pick the Detroit Lions to win the NFC, because you've met Jared's dad.
That's why I picked him to win the Super Bowl at the Summit, because one of their assistant coaches is my former neighbor.
You did.
Cameron Davis. We all get to make our predictions based on what we want to make them on.
Yeah.
Now, to me, the Niners are the exact same team other than having McCaffrey. And yes, that's a step down. But if you look at the look-ahead line, and I just checked it from before the season started, the Niners are favored by 5 in this game. So here we are without McCaffrey, and the spread is either 4.5 or 5.
4.5 or 5.
So there you go. Yeah. It hasn't moved that much.
No, look, and by the way, we're also working on a premise that's not real yet. However, you and I are both guessing, and I think it's an educated guess, that it's headed that direction. So right now, it might be fair that the betting world is considered that Christian McCaffrey is out for week 2. And if he's just out week 2, why on earth would that send a tremor through the Super Bowl odds? They're already 1-0, and they did so emphatically. Whether the Vikings are a challenge or not this weekend remains to be seen. I hear a lot of educated opinions on this one that say the Niners will roll this weekend. I know some people in some pretty interesting places that think the Vikings are going to win this football game. Tell you who told me that coming up here in a few. But the world is working right now on the premise that he's gone for week 2. I and you are working on the premise that he's going to be gone until at least week 6.
Well, let's just think about that, and we can talk about why we believe that. And I think about first the nature of the injury, and maybe this is a day we get an emergency Pandya, Dr. Nirav Pandya.
I think that's already a done deal.
Okay, good.
20 minutes, he's going to call us.
Wonderful, because I want to ask about rest in this type of an injury and what that actually can do for quieting down the inflammation that's happening in the Achilles. But you miss week 1, and you start to ramp up for week 2, and then you get shut down on Friday. That tells me that this is a bigger thing than we would have thought back in camp. And so if it's bigger now than it was 4 days ago on Monday, for me, from a radio doctor standpoint, it's gotten worse, not better. So now we have to take more drastic measures to get it better, which means you sit out 4 games. And I'm looking at the schedule, and that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd be back October 10th on a Thursday. So it's only 27 days from now.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's actually pretty quick.
But keep in mind, IR designated to return, like we're talking week 6 simply because that's the minimum rule. But there's no indication. Well, we have no idea when Christian's going to feel better. You can put him on IR and keep him there for much longer.
Right.
And then there are rules as to far as like, if you're going to designate to return, you've got to do it by this week. I don't have those all in front of me right now. But week 6 is just when he would be allowed to return.
Agreed.
Not necessarily projected to return.
And if you look at that week 6 game, it's a short week at Seattle. It's a Thursday night game. And if you sat him for that game, he'd have 10 more days before Kansas City. And then you have Dallas the week after that. Then you have a bye. So there are different, I think, checkpoints on this. If he does go on IR, 4 games, all right, Seattle on the 10th, but maybe you hold him out then and you wait till 10 days later, Kansas City, which would give him an extra 10 days.
I fully hear everything you're saying.
We just don't know.
And then I'll also add in, like, how's the leg feel?
Yeah.
Nobody would have guessed what Kyle just said, which was that yesterday was the worst pain day he's had the whole time. that means it's getting worse.
Agreed.
Not better as he rests.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
And if he was...
I don't know where this is going.
Exactly. So let's just put some like mythical numbers on it, because we didn't find out till Monday he was out, and he was, working all the way up till game time. So that Monday he was probably about 75%. And he said if it was a playoff game, a meaningful game, he would go. And you go from there, 4 days later, now he's out on a Friday. So maybe he went from 75% to like 50%.
Well, it feels to me like the Niners are getting surprised by what's happening with Christian's body. That's what it feels. I don't know that, but you went into camp, and now we find out that whatever, he's been feeling it off and on for 7 months? Okay, that's bad. That freaks everyone out. Now the word Achilles pops up in addition to a calf. That freaks everyone out. But you're still all along expecting him to play on Monday Night Football. Then all of a sudden at the last minute, he doesn't. That further freaks everyone out. Then now we're sort of ready for it, but you get to today and announce that as he was a limited participant in 2 practices, he had his worst pain day since I don't even know when. Like, what's the frame of reference there? Worst day of the week? Worst day of the month? Worst since when? But whatever it is, his body is not reacting well to whatever they're trying to do. And so we can say week 6, I don't know. How about somewhere between week 6 and week next year?
Right.
That might be what I'd like. Get ready. I don't know.
You never know.
And he doesn't know.
Exactly. And obviously they don't know. And how could they know? And so McCaffrey doesn't play Monday. Tuesday's an off day. He gets treatment. He goes out Wednesday and he's limited. And he makes it through. And then clearly Thursday, he went out and tried to do the same thing. And you saw the video from practice, and he looked a little bit off. I don't know how you would describe it. I'm going to try to pull up some of the footage myself and see what you're talking about. But clearly after Thursday, second day in a row, he was worse, not better. And then you get to today, and it's like, I got more pain than I've had. What are we doing?
Yeah, I'm basing it on the burst as he got the ball on a couple of routes that he was running as they were doing their drills, and he did not look like he was pushing it to full speed, and his body language just didn't look great. But again, I'm sitting here looking at a video of somebody on a field. I can't tell you what he was actually feeling, but as I watched it, I remember what went through my belly. I'm like, that didn't look like Christian to me.
Yeah.
That didn't look like other practice videos I've seen of Christian. It looked like something a little bit lesser.
And why was he even a limited participant yesterday?
Obviously, because I think that they were probably trying to go through the process of seeing if he'd be ready to play. And it didn't. The body did not go the same as last week. The body did not go where they wanted it to go.
And you remember Christian saying, Grandy, that his mentality was to be ready to play on Sunday. So his mentality was, I want to practice Wednesday, Thursday, whatever, limited or full, it doesn't matter. He wanted to get himself ready, ramped up to play, and you get to today, and if he's experiencing more pain than he has in this cycle of this injury, well, then you shut it down.
We're going to go back to the phones. We're asking you, do you still consider the 49ers Super Bowl favorites, even if just in the NFC? Do you still consider them favorites to go to the Super Bowl, which they firmly are, and they remain at this hour, with the news that Christian is both out this week and the Niners are considering IR, which would push it at least through week 5? Your answer is yes. Here's my answer. Yeah. Different tone. No, because here's what I mean. I need more evidence that the run game is going to look like that without him. I'm not going to just be we've all seen running backs go for $150 and the next week they go for 28.
Yeah, but I know this is different.
That's why I said,
I get it.
I want more. I want to see more before I go, well, that's just what the Niners are going to look like. That's all we've got to go on so far. But week to week league, and look how much, again, opinions change based on
1 game
60
for sure.
minutes of football. Well, I'd like to see at least 60 more before I decide that Jordan Mason's going to go for 1,300 yards this year. That's all.
I get that. I also do think, and Kyle was asked today about Deebo Samuel and, will he get more carries now as a result of Christian being out? And Kyle said, well, it depends on the game flow and every game's different. And he kind of dodged it. But the answer, I believe, is yes. So Deebo's going to get probably 6 to 8 carries again. And he's going to, be a guy who's probably the backup running back for lack of a better way to describe it.
I by the way, this is just, and again, I'm no play caller, and I love the hell out of Kyle Shanahan. I'd love to see less of that. You drafted somebody again in the third round, or was it? When was Garendo? What round was that? What round was Isaac Garendo?
Fourth round, I think.
Fourth round, was it? Was it fourth? Not third. Anyway, whatever.
Pooney was the third rounder.
Yeah. You drafted somebody again. I'd love to see that person spell Jordan Mason. Fourth round, confirmed. Okay. I'd love to see that person spell Jordan Mason. Son. I'm not saying that Debo can't carry the ball out of the backfield, but I'd love to see that be a little bit more of what it's been in the past. Surprise nature, jet sweep, whatnot. I worry more about Debo now. If that's the way, if you're actually going to line him up in the backfield and 6 to 8 times a game, just turn him into a running back that runs into the line, that, I don't think that that's awesome for Debo, the receiver. So,
right.
But again, I don't know if Garendo was ready. We'll see where that goes from here. If they put him on IR, they get a new roster spot. Maybe they can have more backs on the sideline on game day. Let's go to Rudy in Newark. Hi, Rudy. Thanks for calling Willard and Dibs.
Hey, guys. How are you? Good to talk to you.
Great to have you.
Hey, yeah, thanks. I been a long-time listener, about a third-time caller. Anyway, I'm not a doctor, but I did spend the night at a Holiday Inn Express.
Oh, good for you. I hope someone was with you.
McCaffrey, I don't understand how he got through all of last year injury-free, because all of his time in Carolina, and I'm convinced that they've known about this and that Christian's been hurt since camp even began. And I don't, for the life of me, understand why they would let him play or try and play like yesterday. They have to know. They have to have x-rays and MRIs. They got to know the tendonitis exists in the Achilles, and that doesn't go away without rest. Why would you push him on Thursday to see if he can play this Sunday? It doesn't register with me. What do you think?
Well, Rudy, here's what I think. If this is something that's been going on all offseason, which there are indications that has been the case, I'd argue that they did rest him. They rested him. That he didn't go to OTAs. Then they signed him to a new contract. Then he showed up to camp and worked for like 2 days. And then they shelved him. And I know he did work on the side, but he essentially skipped camp too, as far as meaningful reps on the field. And then they got to game week, and they checked on it.
Right.
Like, dude, are you ready? And the answer was no. And then they checked on it again for week 2, and it got worse. So now that's when you start thinking IR. I get where you're coming from, which is like, why would you do that? I'd argue that if this is something that they've known about for 6 months, sounds to me like they did go as slow as possible.
Exactly.
While keeping the possibility open for him being ready for the start of the year.
And this is how you find out if a player's ready. You go out to practice and you push the player on a limited basis. You get him out there and you see. And it goes well the first practice, and you think, all right, let's try it again the next practice. Maybe we'll give him a little bit more and see how it looks. And that was yesterday. And he went out there and it looked maybe not as good as you would have hoped. And then today he comes in for the final practice of the week before the Saturday walkthrough, and you don't even make it out of the practice field because you've got pain and you've had a setback. This is what you do when you try to see if a player's ready. There's no other way to have a player get ready. Like in baseball, where a guy goes on an IL stint and he's out for a month, you throw him into single A for a game, maybe 2, maybe he gets a triple A game, maybe 2, then you bring him up. You see how he's doing on his way back, and that's what this is. And unfortunately, McCaffrey got to stage 2, and if he would have gone through yesterday, no pain, he practices today, no pain, he plays on Sunday.
McCaffrey is out today. Kyle Shanahan says they are now considering IR, which would push him out through week 5. If that happens, do you still view the 49ers as Super Bowl favorites? Dibs says yes. I say, yeah. Vegas says yes. Vegas, in fact, says at this hour, unchanged. However, Vegas is not adding in the somewhat hypothetical scenario that we are, which is we're sort of assuming that he's going to be gone at least for the first 5 games of the year. Vegas can't really do that. They're in the moment. And right now, Christian is only out for week 2. But I'm with you. I would be very surprised if in the next, we got a lot less than 48 hours, if in the next, 42 hours or so,
yep,
we don't find out that Christian is going to be out for the next 4 games.
This feels like a classic Sunday morning, like before you wake up, Adam Schefter, where, the 49ers will have announced at that point that he's going on the list.
Well, do you remember how quickly, when the words IR, when you see a coach go, IR is a consideration, the amount of time between when Sean McVay said that and Puka Nacua actually went on IR.
It's like an hour, right?
Like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens before the hell we leave here.
It could. Yeah.
Honestly, if this is based on yesterday was his worst day of pain, then you come to today, you've got practice, you've got all your media stuff. Like, I would imagine that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and everybody involved is probably in the middle of meetings with team doctors about this right now.
And that's a good point.
And they may well come out of there with no white smoke.
Right. They may come out of there with an addition to the roster. And if he goes in the list, then the player that you add to the roster can get on the flight and go to Minnesota and help you out. I did think it was interesting what Kyle said about Garendo and Patrick Taylor Jr. about, their ability to step up. And he said Garendo missed so much time, and then he got those 2 preseason games and he was rolling. He looked good in those games, but Kyle's already lamenting being down to, deep on the running back depth chart. You don't have Mitchell and you don't have McCaffrey, so he's down to RB3.
You have a group of pups like Jordan Mason. You know what I mean? Like, I know now we're all just comfortable. Well, what if Jordan limps off even for a handful of plays?
You've got Garendo and Patrick Taylor Jr., and that's why I do think what you're saying about well, you don't want to use Debo,
I know, I agree with you.
He's your change of pace, but you talk about the IR, and if you are going to make that move with Christian McCaffrey, it behooves you to do it soon so that you can find another running back to add to your team and, get them up to speed just in case.
But yeah, we've had that question, and I'm glad you just answered it on the Xfinity Mobile text line of like, what would be the reasoning behind IR? Why do you want to lock up 4 games? Yes, gives you an extra player while that player who goes on IR is getting healthy. If you know he's not going to be ready, or if it's not smart to play him over the next 4 weeks, absolutely the right thing to do. And again, our experience, when you hear coaches and general managers say that publicly and into microphones, it's very rare, I think, that you say we're considering IR and then you come out and you're like, no, skip it. Like, because what indication would you have right now if you're the 49ers that this is going to get better in the next 3 weeks? You have the only thing we know is that yesterday was the worst day so far the whole time.
Yes.
So you got no indicator that this is going to get better in the next 3 weeks.
And he was coming off of 2 practices in a row where he was trying to ramp up and he started to feel something. Just Niner fans and fantasy football fans, keep your eyes on Keyshawn Vaughn on the practice squad.
Yeah, boy.
He might be the candidate who gets elevated if a move like this happens. Keyshawn Vaughn.
Fantasy's crazy.
Keyshawn Vaughn.
Every year, the league.
Who are you?
The league is won by somebody who went in your draft. You're like, I wasn't even thinking about that person. Yeah. Hashtag Puka Nacua. You weren't even thinking about this stuff at the beginning of the year.